Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. And in case you haven't read the news on the social media accounts at My Weekly Mixtape, I have announced that this and next week's episode is going to wind down this run of My Weekly Mixtape for now. This has been 150 incredible episodes, but a lot's gone down over the last year. As a lot of you know, I've talked about it on the show. I had heart surgery 1 year ago in July, and unfortunately this year lost my father to pancreatic cancer. And with that, I'm going to take a little time to spend the first round of holidays in the fall with my family, kind of navigating the new normal, if it will. I'm not saying that My Weekly Mixtape is going away forever, but for the fall, we are going to press pause for now. But I wanted to celebrate with two really awesome episodes. And this week, we are talking about the perfect album. Now, what is the perfect album? To everybody, it's a completely different answer. And that's what I love about this exercise. So over the last year, I've asked pretty much every guest I've had on the show what they consider to be a perfect album. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be your favorite album of all time, just an album that you consider to be perfect from start to finish. So for example, my favorite album of all time is The Cars self-titled. If you don't know that already, you probably haven't listened to the show yet. Welcome to your first episode. But I talk about that all the time. It is my favorite album of all time. But when I think about an album that I consider to be perfect from start to finish, Counting Crows, August and Everything After comes to mind. Rage Against the Machine's Self-Titled comes to mind. Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill comes to mind. There are so many albums that could be perfect to each and every listener. And that's what this exercise is. So we're going to start, and I'm just going to go alphabetical by band, because in this type of episode, really, the sky's the limit. So we're going to start with Don Jameson, host of the Rockstrap podcast, and his choice for the perfect album.
Wow. Perfect. A perfect album. Jeez. That's tough. Because I'm trying to give something that, most people who are going to be listening to this have heard. Obviously, I think Destroyer's as perfect an album as you can get, but well, I think, in fact, I know I said this on That Metal Show, because it somehow went into their Wikipedia page for this album, but a perfect album to me is AC/DC Powerage.
Nice.
So, yeah, and for a while it was on the Wikipedia page for the album that I had stated that on That Metal Show. So I'm going to back up my words from back then and say that album to me, there's from note one to the last note, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad, there's nothing boring, there's nothing typical. That album is absolutely perfect from beginning to end.
Shocked that Rock and Roll Damnation was not a staple in AC/DC set lists from the day it was released. To me, it's one of their most powerful album openers, and that's against songs like Hell's Bells, Thunderstruck, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. It is an amazing album opener, and the entire album is incredible. Easily their most underrated album, too, on top of everything else.
Yeah, well, I did. The good thing was with Brian, he was always open to doing, the Bond material. In fact, he pushed for it. And, I know they did one tour where they did a bunch of songs off Powerage. And, I just think that's cool, because there are singers who refuse or begrudgingly sing the other person's material, Sammy Hagar being one of them. He never really wanted to do the Dave stuff, which is fine. I don't have anything against Sammy for that, but I love that Brian Johnson was really instrumental in keeping the Bond stuff in the set and mixing it up a little bit with stuff. And they're doing it on this tour as well, which is cool. So, but I agree with you. That album and Rock and Roll Damnation just kicking off riff raff. Oh my God, it doesn't end. It's just beginning to end. Sin City. Bond, Sin City, like you could picture Bond rolling into the casino with a girl on both his arms with a bottle of champagne and, rolling those dice, and, it just gets seared into your brain.
It's always a pleasure talking music with Don. Check out Rockstrap wherever you find your favorite podcasts. He is hysterical. He's also out doing his comedy thing on the road. Keep an eye on him and keep up with what he's got going on. Awesome human being and incredibly funny dude, knowledgeable about music to the umpteenth degree. Up next, CJ Pierce of Drowning Pool gives his choice for the perfect album.
That's a tough one, man. There's so many. Oh my God. There's a lot of them. One of them that I did listen to consistently, especially at certain parts of my life and still to this day, I mean, Alison Chains Dirt, to me, front to back is great. I know that's, there's just something about that record.
Amazing album, man.
Yeah, it's a great record, man. It's front to back. We have a handful of albums out here in the front. I do have the PA in the living room and the record player. And on Sundays, not every Sunday, but we try to pick an album and with the family, like we're going to listen to old record, old school. You're going to sit down with daddy for an hour and we're going to listen to this thing front to back with everything else just to keep that tradition going. Because it's something, again, like with Tool, like turn the cameras off, like sit there and just pay attention, absorb the whole band and the music and this whole record and then get on with the rest of your day. So we still, kind of, I don't know why I picked Sundays. It's like Sunday music day, but it's like we'll go through and put albums on. So I'm getting a bigger collection now. Between my wife and I, but I still love putting on the record player, dude, and playing it through. I have 2 power amps, and everything's analog that I'm going through because I'm a purist when it comes down to the album stuff. So I want to hear it and feel it. So
you are literally describing my Friday nights growing up. My parents would turn the TV off. My dad would open up the bin underneath the record player, and he'd be like, "Brian, pick an album," and I would go through and just look at the album cover and be like, "What's this?" And that's how I got my music education between the Cars, Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis is great, dude. Yeah, I still do that, man. That's just something about that, just getting in that zone and listen to the whole thing.
Well, parenting, CJ Pierce is doing it right.
I think I'm trying my best.
And if you haven't checked out my episode with CJ, go back and check out his perfect concert set list in the archives. Really fun conversation. Be sure to check that out. But up next, we have Patreon mixtaper Philip Bergman with his pick for the perfect album.
Brian, one of these days, I'm going to have a normal answer for you for these questions. I feel like one of these days, I'm just going to be able to say, oh, yeah, this AC/DC record or this Tom Petty record, it'll be something that just is something that everyone else is like, oh, yeah, that's a good one. Instead, I guess I'm going to go with another head tilter here, but for me, on a personal level, I have to go with the Avenue Q soundtrack. I mean, there was a few years there where, the weight of existence just felt so daunting, and I would just put the CD on of the soundtrack, and I would just use it as medicine, basically, to just cheer me up and just kind of help me go to bed without a feeling of existential dread. And it even got to the point where when my then girlfriend would call me up on the phone and she would hear "What do you do with a BA in English" in the background, she'd be like, "What's wrong, Philip? What's wrong?" Because she knew something was wrong with me. It's not just the comedy numbers. Yeah, the comedy numbers are great too, and it's mostly comedy numbers. I mean, even My Girlfriend in Canada or I'm Not Wearing Underpants Today, just hilarious tracks. But even the big love ballad, There's a Fine, Fine Line, it is kind of that you can feel it in your heart because even if, it's a song about chasing love pointlessly, but I think with so many fluid things in life, there's such a fine, fine line about many things in life. There's a joke where there's a thin line between being weird and being insane, and I like to use that line as a jump rope. There's that joke. But yeah, to just cheer me up. Every song on the album just was another dose of medicine to help me feel better. And I still love that song. Even when I'm not feeling depressed, I still love listening to that soundtrack. And even once in a while, I listen to it now if I feel like I'm in the mood to start some shenanigans. So I have to go with the Avenue Q soundtrack.
I've had the pleasure of having Philip on the show several times to talk about Weird Al Yankovic as well as summer golden oldies and doo-wop. He's been a huge supporter of my podcasting journey, all the way back from Tune Styles through Playlist Wars and now on My Weekly Mixtape. I'm so grateful for the support you give the show and for your friendship and always the amazing musical conversations we've had together. Philip, thank you so much for being a part of the My Weekly Mixtape canon. Up next, we've got my friends Jim and Lindsay Butler of the Children of the 80s podcasts with their choices for the perfect album.
Oh, no. Oh, you need to ask Jim first. Make Jim go first. Jim, you're up.
Jim, I am not going to argue with her. How would you like to answer this one first?
I would probably go License to Ill by the Beastie Boys.
Oh, that was too easy. You answered it too fast.
I would probably go with that because it was such a monumental album that we had as kids. I think my brother got it for either his birthday or Christmas. And as soon as he got it, we ripped it open and we went downstairs to our room and we listened to that thing probably 100 times over the next month. No skips. We didn't skip anything. As I get older now, there might be a one or two that I skip, but for the most part, it starts out just perfect. It ends perfect. It was the first time, other than Run DMC, that I had heard rock and rap combined. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can do that? Like, I kind of got Run DMC and Aerosmith because it seemed almost like the same song. But then, to hear a lot of their Led Zeppelin guitars going along with just rap or hip hop, I was just blown away. And so to me, I would say License to Ill by the Beastie Boys. From the cover art to every single song, it is almost, if not perfect.
Was that enough time, Lindsay, for you to come
I'm
up
like,
with
now you're already coming back to me. It's going to have to be a Foo Fighters album for me. I can't think of a bad Foo Fighters album. So, I don't know off the top of my head. I guess, well, can I pick their greatest hits? Can I go with that, Foo Fighters?
If you consider, there's no rules in this answer. If you consider that to be a perfect album.
I think that no doubt there is not a song on that album that I don't love. The greatest hits takes all the good that's out there and puts it into one.
And if you're an 80s nut, be sure to check out all things Children of the 80s wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I was on there to do a Weird Al episode, had a lot of fun. Jim and Lindsay were on My Weekly Mixtape to talk about 80s music videos. We had a fantastic conversation. Keep up with all the amazing things they're doing over there. And thank you to them for being on the show and part of the My Weekly Mixtape universe. But up next, Tim Foreman of Switchfoot talks about his choice for the perfect album.
Abbey Road. Every song is perfect, not in just that it's a perfect song, but that it's telling a story. That album gives you everything you want, from kind of this moody, mysterious track one come together, kind of these bright, psychedelic moments, followed by this, grand 3 or 4 song kind of seamless medley, multiple guitar solos, surprises, just no rules on that album. I can't imagine hearing that for the first time when it came out because there was nothing like it. No one's done anything like it since.
Be sure to check out Switchfoot's latest single, Last Man Standing, which they did with the one and only Buddy Guy. We did a song dive episode on that earlier this year. Be sure to give that one a listen. Awesome stuff going on there. And up next, we have Zack Derby of the Neatcast with his choice for the perfect album.
Oh, gosh. So there's a couple, but the one that immediately comes to mind, Boston.
Oh, nice. An absolute classic.
Debut album, cover to cover, just, I'm a New England boy. That is classic rock. Like, oh my God, just everything about that first Boston album is just zinger after zinger after zinger. Just everything is just put out there. I think that's one of the best albums, not even a debut album, just best albums, period.
Now, Zack is somebody that I am so grateful to have actually met now outside of the podcasting universe. He and my family have gotten together several times over the last couple years. Amazing family, amazing human being. Be sure to check out what's going on over at the Neatcast. They have an incredible thing going on over there, and I'm grateful for the podcasting relationship we've had over the years, as well as for his friendship. So I appreciate that. And it looks like up next, we've got a twofer, and that being from Chris Voss of the record company, who gives two choices for what he thinks are perfect albums.
Well, I'll chicken out and say two, because one's a live record and one's studio record.
Fair enough.
The live record would be Hendrix Band of Gypsies.
Nice.
No question. Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies at the Fillmore. Starts with Who Knows, goes into Machine Gun. That's side A. You know, 2 songs for side A, and then the back half is more of the funky party, but it's just 3-piece, and he's playing out of his mind, just absolutely out of his mind, breaking every rule that built guitar playing afterward. You know, Eddie Van Halen, for instance, said his favorite solo is Machine Gun off of that record. So like, if you're a fan of metal and stuff, it's like, that's how deep that stuff goes. It's the intersection of the blues meets psychedelia at the exact moment where it just kind of shot up. You could kind of hear a little bit of what eventually became Black Sabbath and all this other stuff, and Zeppelin, all that stuff. So that's the live record. And then the other record, it's not exactly what I would call one nobody's heard about, but I think Dark Side of the Moon is absolute perfection. I only put that on when I'm really ready to go for the whole ride. That's an album I won't listen to unless I'm going to listen to the whole album. It's been a while since I've listened to the whole album. Just had some really beautiful experiences with that album on in the background, or just with that album. And what's funny is that when I first was a fan of music, you know, I'm not going to say I didn't like Pink Floyd, but I didn't get them to the point that they were anywhere near what I just said. I just didn't have I'm a dairy farm kid in the middle of, barely ever drank, never took a toke of weed, didn't know nothing. And then, it was kind of like when I ended up going to college in Milwaukee because my mom made a deal with me that because I wanted to go move to Chicago and start playing professionally right away. She said, if you go to school, I'll never say another word, but you should go to school. So I owed her that. She's a great mother. So, and she was right. It was the right thing to do. I still formed bands in college and had a great time. So it didn't cost me nothing, but it was in college, probably elevated. That album came on, and it just, words fail me on that one. It's just when you get by the time you hear that last note, it's just forget about it.
Be sure to check out the Ultimate Record Company playlist episode in the archives. They are one of my favorite bands that I feel like should be selling out arenas, and they are just on it. Every album is fantastic from the first to the fourth. You are going to love the Record Company. Be sure to check out what they've got going on. And up next, Jim Loughlin of Mo gives his choice, or choices, for the perfect album.
Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance.
Ooh.
And I've said this since I was in 8th grade. There's not a bad song. There's not a lift the needle song on that record. There've always been, that and the first 3 Metallica albums. I mean, again, those are the records that I can just listen to and not, when I lived at home, when I was in high school, my stereo was actually in the other room. But the speakers were in my room. Stereo was in the other room. Those records I never had to touch. If we were all hanging out in my room, those records played. Nothing got touched. There was tons of other records where someone was like, dude, skip this, and you had to go and no one wants to hear this one. But Screaming for Vengeance was the first record that hit me, where I realized, holy cow, everything on this album is amazing. I love every song on this record. I can, listen to it over and over and over and not feel a need to skip a track. And like I said, and then I heard the first 3 Metallica, and to me, those, if we're talking perfect records, those 3 records are perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I have to follow up, though, if you don't mind. My first ever Metallica album that I bought with my own money was the vinyl of Injustice for All, and that is album number 4. So
yeah.
I have to ask, do you not love Justice?
I love Justice. My only critique of Injustice for All was after hearing the first 3 records, you had to sonically adjust to how Metallica now sounded in the studio. I love the record. The songs are amazing on the record, but there was like an adjustment to it. It was, you heard like Blackened and Dyer's Eve and those songs like slammed. And I was like, oh my God. But there was just this little tweak that you had to make and accept with that record. And I personally am a fan of all their records. I love Saint Anger. I know people like, I don't mind the sound of the snare drum in Saint Anger. To me, it was Lars like trying to do something different. And, when you have a fan base that Metallica has and are still willing to change how you sound, that's bold. There's not a lot of bands that are willing to do that. They don't want to mess up a good thing and all that stuff and everything. But if you just listen to the first 3 Metallica albums from Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning, there's a small adjustment, but it's instantly accepted because you realize that there was more money in Injustice for All. But Injustice for All and Master of Puppets just sound so good, both of them. They didn't miss a beat going from one record to the next. It was amazing, and they just kept getting better and better and better. Like, it was incredible, because I have I have an original pressing of Kill 'Em All.
Nice. From Megaforce.
Yeah, I have the Megaforce record. It has no sleeve. It has no lyrics, just that clear plastic around the record. That's it. So I've been listening to them since what I consider, close to day one. I've seen them in a small club with Cliff playing, and I've been around Metallica for my whole life. And those first 3 records will always be like I said, they're perfect. There's very few records that can contend with those 3 out of anybody that's ever recorded an album. But Screaming of Vengeance just hit me hard. I heard it before that stuff, so it holds even like a very special place.
Jim has been a 3-peater on my weekly mixtape, joining me to talk all things Mo way back in the early stages of the show. He also came on to do an album dive for Circle of Giants, as well as to build his own ultimate concert set list. Huge fan of Mo, will always be a fan of these guys. Jim is the bee's knees. What a great dude. Awesome taste in music. Thank you for all the great conversations, Jim, and love the fact that we're talking Judas Priest and Metallica in the same breath. Amazing. Up next on the Perfect Album episode, we have Doug Aldrich of the Dead Daisies.
Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti for me is perfect because it covers it's got everything you could possibly want, from amazing songs and amazing guitar playing, different moods. You can trip out on it, but you can also get, it's like super heavy, and it covers the best of Led Zeppelin to me. So a lot of people would say like, their favorite album would be Zeppelin 4 or Zeppelin 3. A lot of people, it's a sleeper album, Zeppelin 3, but a lot of people love that album. There was a little competition, what was their favorite album, 1, 2, or 3, and a lot of people I picked 2 because Led Zeppelin 2.
Yep.
That was my first album that I got from Zeppelin, and I love it, and it's got a lot of great songs on it. But Zeppelin 3 also has got like amazing songs and a lot of different styles to it. So a lot of people love that. But for me, Physical Graffiti would be it.
Be sure to check out the album dive episode that we did on the Dead Daisies Looking for Trouble. We go deep into the blues with Doug. Incredibly fun blues album. Great listen. Be sure to check that out. And while we're on the topic of Led Zeppelin, let's turn it over to Paul Jackson of Blackberry Smoke with his choice for the perfect album.
Oh, God. That comes with so many different things. Like maybe there's a guitar record I like. Maybe there's a vocal record I like. Oh, God, that is hard. That's tough. That's a mean question. Oh, my God. Because we talk about this all the time. Like Brandon and I are listening to a record and we're going, like every band has their Dark Side of the Moon, which is their beginning to end, nothing wrong with it, everything. So it's hard. And I'll start thinking about Van Halen and Ozzy and stuff in my head. God, I like Zeppelin 1 because it's fresh out of the box. I'm trying to remember because my head's spinning with all this music talk. We're trying to think of most of the songs on it. Just the riffs, the sound. It didn't take a lot of equipment to make that record. Small amps with a microphone on it, and it sounds ginormous when you listen to it. But I'm going to go with that one. I mean, come on, it's Led Zeppelin. But that's a tough question.
Obviously, what can I say? Blackberry Smoke, one of my favorite live bands out there right now. Southern Rock, they are really carrying the torch. Incredible group. Be sure to check them out when they're on the road. They're always on the road. So there's really no excuse to not see some Blackberry Smoke live. And I appreciate him coming on the show to be a part of the ultimate Blackberry Smoke playlist. Be sure to check that episode out. But up next, friend of the show and Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamasa chimes in with his choice for the perfect album.
The perfect album selection was a little tough for me. I guess for me, a perfect album is a no skip album and just one that I can just go back to over and over and over. There were so many to choose from. The Violent Femmes debut album, pretty much anything by Emily Wolfe or ZZ Ward or Weekend Friends. But the one I'm going with is Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine. That was the first album that really showed me that artists could be writing from my heart, if that makes sense. I kind of found that album a little bit late. It came out in 89 and I didn't really find it until sometime in 1990. Anyway, in college, I was going through a breakup and one song in particular on that album just really was exactly everything that I was going through in that breakup. So that's my selection.
Chad has been a huge supporter of my weekly mixtape since he first discovered the show, and even going back and checking out all the Playlist Wars episodes. He's a huge part of the show's Discord channel. Had some great musical conversations with him over the years. Appreciate all those discussions and your friendship, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the My Weekly Mixtape community. It means the world to me. But I do have to say, you're not alone with your love for Nine Inch Nails, because up next is Barry Kerch of Shinedown's choice for the perfect album.
I mean, I could go with the cliche answer of Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, because it is. It's a perfect record. But for me, in my world, a perfect record is Nine Inch Nails' Downward Spiral, from front to back. Life-changing, formative for me. You know, that was 1994. That was the year I graduated high school and went to college. But there is not a bad song on there. The king of industrial, in my opinion. He just, and again, that's all him. That's his writing, his thing. And that record doesn't have a bad moment on it. And it was so different and so ahead of its time that's a perfect record. Disintegration from The Cure is a perfect record. There's not a ton of perfect records out there, but there's a few. Those are the two that pop into my mind right out the bat.
And obviously fans of Shinedown know that they've got The Killing Fields, which is out now. And oh yeah, remember when Barry was on the show, he talked about that song being forthcoming, as well as their singles 365 and Dance Kid Dance. You could check all of them out on the Ultimate Shinedown playlist episode that we did earlier this year, one of the highlights of this series run. Appreciate Barry coming on the show and talking all things Shinedown with me, and looking forward to what the band is going to be bringing to the table with Shinedown 8. Up next, it's my boy Jay Sweet, all the way back since the Tune Styles days. Day one, him and I have been podcasting together now over 7 years, and I'm sure there's going to be more to say down the road in the future, whenever that may be. But here's Jay Sweet's choice for the perfect album.
Wow, that's a great question. Oh boy. Oh wow. Which I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, I mean, that is a really great question.
I love stumping people with this one because, believe it or not, it's an easy question.
Yes.
But when you think about perfection, it's so subjective. It really makes this a tough question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and it could vary depending on what genre
or what decade you want to go with, or what year even. You could break it down that granularly.
Yeah, but you've stalled long enough. Give me an answer.
All right, let's go. All right, gun to my head, Pearl Jam's 10.
Oh, nice.
Every song on that album fits. You know exactly what you're getting. It's a pure Pearl Jam album, and they set you up, and they never let you down all the way through that record.
And I have to ask, because you and I are also audiophiles a little bit, which mix do you prefer, the original 1991 mix or the remix that Brendan O'Brien did?
Oh, I like the original just for the nostalgia feeling of it.
Jay, always appreciate your friendship and the many, many, many musical conversations we've had over the years. I'm sure there's many, many, many more to come. So I appreciate your friendship and being a part of the My Weekly Mixtape canon for so many shows. You have definitely earned your board shorts, my friend. Thank you so, so much. And up next, one of my closest friends on the planet, Bob Spears, chiming in with his choice for the perfect album.
There's a few examples. I'm trying to pick which one would be the best answer. My goodness. Okay, so really when you think about what would be the best possible full album, you have to think of a record that you just can't really imagine listening to a single song and not hearing the very next song. A good example would be, say, like the Beatles' Abbey Road, just simply because of the medley at the back end. You can't start Golden Slumbers and not go all the way through till the end, or Her Majesty. And that's pretty close, but I would say probably the most perfect album, the one that you just kind of have to listen to beginning to end, is it's kind of a cliche answer, I hate to tell you, but it's Dark Side of the Moon. Really, that just whole record, it just all flows together. When you hear the one end of one song, you want to hear the next. Even when the album breaks from side A to side B, there's that pause, and then you have to hear Money come in. It's just perfect as far as a record goes. It sounds good. The engineering is amazing. Musicianship is good. The lyrics are good. The album cover is even good. It's iconic. So you can't go wrong with that record at all. So yeah, it's an easy answer. Unfortunately, I wish I could have gone something a little deeper, but sometimes the greats are the greats for a reason. And that's it.
Absolutely undeniable. Love the choice. Love the pick. And with that, we are going to move on to my friend and musician and fellow podcaster and all around incredible human being, Sean Faust. He is up next with his choice for the perfect album.
That's tough because, I mean, I'm sure I've been vocal about my favorite albums through the years on multiple episodes of this show. But an album that's perfect, even those albums that are my favorites, that are my top fives, they still have like a song that I'm like, I could always skip. But an album that's perfect from front to end, it's the first CD I ever owned. It is Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
Nice.
This just might be the album that really truly opened the gateway to prog rock for me. Now, I was already a huge Floyd fan at this time, but where Floyd embodies prog rock in the ethereal, spacey, and just arrangement way, when you think of prog rock, you think of shredding. You think of like Yes or Rush or Dream Theater. I could have gone with Scenes from a Memory, but no. This is probably my favorite concept album of all time as well. And I know I'm probably pissing off a lot of people with that one because there is The Wall. There is Scenes from a Memory. There's Them from King Diamond. I mean, what the hell? These are all great albums. However, man, Operation Mindcrime from beginning to end tells just, it's so compelling to just listen to. I don't want to ruin it for those of you who haven't heard it. Go listen to it, put on headphones, just immerse yourself into this. This is Queensryche challenging themselves to do something a little bit outside the box from what they had been doing with the EP and the two albums before that. And this just, man, I can't even finish a sentence thinking about this album. But Operation Mindcrime is definitely that perfect album for me.
Sean's been on many episodes of My Weekly Mixtape, so be sure to go back and check out all of those episodes. The most recent one we did was the Ultimate Fish playlist, so be sure to check that one out, as well as all of Sean's music. He performs throughout New Jersey, as well as with Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, which is the ultimate Bon Jovi tribute in this area. Be sure to check him out. Check out his originals, check out his music, check out all the things he's trying to do over there. SeanFaustmusic.com. Appreciate your friendship, man, and being a part of the show. Now, up next is an album that in the world of My Weekly Mixtape couldn't be more perfect, as Sean and this next guest both joined me for the Trios episode of My Weekly Mixtape. And Sean and this gentleman, that being Jason Whistle, host of It's Not That Bad and There Can Only Be One, really are on the same page musically. And I think nothing speaks to that more than Jason's pick for the perfect album.
So Brian has tasked me here with coming up with something I consider to be a perfect album. And that's going to be hard, right? Because it's got to be the flow all the way through, front to back, no skips whatsoever, all killer, no filler. And I had to think about it, right? Because there are some albums where I've actually called them perfect albums on the show, but I'm like, well, what was really to me a perfect album? And I have to go back a ways. And I'm going with a live album for this. Now, anyone who has listened to the episodes that I've been on My Weekly Mixtape will know that I'm a massive Queensryche fan. So it comes as no surprise when I say that I'm picking Queensryche's Operation Live Crime. Now, follow me along with this one. This was one of those albums that I would put on at night and to try to sleep to, because I'm a white noise sleeper. But I found myself gravitating towards live albums because I always had this dream of being on stage. And the live albums at least helped me kind of envision that and get into that dream state as I was trying to get to sleep. It helped that I also had the VHS, yeah, I said VHS copy of Operation Live Crime. And this was the first time I had ever seen Queensryche on tour. It was the Empire Tour. I saw them at the Lansdowne Park in Ottawa, Ontario. Warrior Soul was opening and I completely dated myself. But that show really showed to me what you could do with an entire album front to back. And the fact that it was a concept album, they had the video screens, the whole works, like this really, really captivated me because it tapped into my TV production background. It tapped into my music background. It tapped into my wish to be a musician background. So really, the fact that they pulled off this concept album so perfectly live, and the live sound on the album is so good too, that you can't really go wrong with anything about Queensryche's Operation Live Crime.
Obviously, back-to-back Operation Mindcrime and Operation Live Crime is absolutely awesome. I can't wait for the two of them to hear this on the episode and get a laugh because neither one of them knew what they picked for this one. That being said, I want to thank Jason for his friendship and being a driving force at the beginning of My Weekly Mixtape. When I talked to him about the idea, he was like, hey, let's hop on and record an episode. And that episode became episode 1, the ultimate opening guitar riffs. So Jason, I can't say enough to thank you for your friendship and all the help you've done over the show. Some incredible discussions and fun episodes all throughout the My Weekly Mixtape catalog. So go back and check it out. But more importantly, Jay is kicking ass over at It's Not That Bad and There Can Only Be One. So much going on over there. One of my favorite music podcasts as well as movie podcasts. Jason's an all-around great guy, hell of a guest. And I cannot wait to hear what he's got coming up in the future. And who knows, chances are I'll be popping over on each of those shows to drop by and say hey every now and then. So Jay, thank you again, my friend. Up next, John Laurie of Tantric and Smile Empty Soul chimes in with his choice for the perfect album.
Also a tough question. Give me 1 second to think about this. Perfect record from front to back. I'm going to go with there's a Reliant K record that is so seamless from the start to the finish with songs woven between that all interlock in such a great way. I'm going to go with Reliant K's So it's MHMM, I think is how they're spelling it. But yeah, that's what I'm going with.
John has also been a guest many times on the show, with his last appearance being the Ultimate Cowbell Anthems playlist, so be sure to check that one out, as well as all things in the Tantric and Smile Empty Soul universe. He's always on the road. He creates some of the best, funniest content over on Instagram. Be sure to follow him at John's Drum Studio. That's JONS Drum Studio over on Instagram. It's worth the follow. Trust me when I say that. Up next is country musician Carrie Cunningham and her choice for the perfect album.
You know what? As you're talking, I was like, oh no, this is going to be so hard. But I think I have an answer. It is Raising Sand by Alison Krauss and Robert Plant.
Ooh.
It is so good. It is so good. And is so left of center that every time you hear it, it's, and again, they're all covers, but they are the way that Alison Krauss and Robert Plant made them, and their voices together, the different instrumentation, how one song goes to the next song. That album as a whole, I think, is my top favorite album from start to finish.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Carrie twice on My Weekly Mixtape. First for the Ultimate Female Country Artists playlist, as well as the Ultimate 90s Country Artists playlist. I appreciate both of her appearances on the show. Incredible conversation, great insight into the genre, and she's a hell of a singer and a hell of a musician. So be sure to check out her music at carrielive.com. Coming up next, Cody Hansen of Hinder with his choice for the perfect album.
I would say the first Third Eye Blind record, or the first one, the one that's got, Jumper and So Much Armed Life and all those on it. So that one is one for me. And then the first Thornley record.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one that most people actually that I know haven't even heard or heard of.
I've heard of it, and I've heard it.
Yeah, man, that's a great album from start to finish. I love everything about it. I think the songs are great. I think the guitar tones are incredible, which is weird because they're all digitally done, but it was the way they stacked them and layered them, and it was kind of a new thing at the time. And so I just think the whole thing is really, really cool.
Hinder is out now supporting their brand new album, Back to Life, which is an album dive episode of My Weekly Mixtape, and you go back in the archives and check that out. Bring Me Back to Life, one of my favorite songs of 2025. It's really struck a chord with me on so many levels. Incredible song. Great to see these guys still at it and kicking ass and taking names. Be sure to catch them when they roll through the area. Really fun episode if you haven't heard that one yet. Up next, Sylvan and Jesse at the Perfectly Good podcast with each of their choices for the perfect album.
Many. Which, is to say that we are very blessed to live in a time where music is available to us, and also that we have lived in a time that albums were an art form that musicians cared about crafting as a complete work. I don't know if we're going to lose that in the coming years. I certainly hope not. But as you were suggesting that, I think one that I just have to put out there is Tom Petty's Wallflowers. It is so perfect in the rise and the fall. And I think it was the album that he was trying to make for many years. And I will also say that one of the first times that I started chatting with a woman named Nancy Stanley Hyatt, it was talking about how much I missed Tom Petty after he died and how that album affected me. So it is just a absolute exquisite piece of writing and performance, and I could listen to it no matter what mood I'm in.
Now, Jesse, the same question to you. Now, I know you host a show called Set Lusting Bruce, so I'll be curious to see if you go with a Bruce Springsteen album or not.
I was waiting for you to ask my favorite John Hyatt album, and that would be Stolen Moments. But no, this is a cliche, but in 77, when I discovered Endless Summer, which was an 8-track, which was a collection of Beach Boys hits, I discovered and loved the Beach Boys. And when I bought Pet Sounds, I said, what is this? I have no idea. What is this? I don't get this. there's instrumentals. What this isn't a Beach Boy album. And I often talk about that. It's, I think, what a lot of people, when they pick up Nebraska from Bruce Springsteen, they go, wait a minute, this is, this isn't the river. But push comes to shove. When people ask me, what is your favorite album? I usually say Pet Sounds. And it's an album that I listen to probably a couple of times a year, and usually just in the dark with headphones on, just enjoying this journey that Brian Wilson took us on.
I am so happy that we finally got Tom Petty into the discussion. I would have been really upset if that didn't come up. My favorite Tom Petty album ever, perfect album. Obviously, glad that it made the list. No denying Pet Sounds either. Sylvan and Jesse, perfectly good podcast. If you're a John Hiatt fan, you need to check out what they're doing over there, going song by song through one of the greatest songwriters of all time's catalog. Please check it out. And also, Jesse has Set Lusting Bruce for all of your Bruce Springsteen needs. 2 incredible podcasts, 2 incredible people. And it was my pleasure to be a guest on the Let It Ride episode of Perfectly Good Podcast, and Sylvan and Jesse were a guest on my episode, the Ultimate John Hiatt Playlist, which we had such a great time doing. And hopefully, if and when the show comes back for a second run, we are going to do a volume 2 of that, because it just has to be done. John Hiatt is one of the greats. But here we are, folks, the last choice of the night. One of the episodes this year that I was so excited to put out, the 30th anniversary of the Presidents of the United States of America. That album dive is back in the archives, and I had a chance to speak with Chris Ballou, lead singer of the Presidents of the United States of America, about that 30th anniversary, and it was definitely a highlight of this year for me. So here is his choice for the perfect album.
Well, as the album that pops into my head when you describe that is Skylarking by XTC.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now that album is kind of like a Sgt. Pepper's. You're flowing and going through all these different atmospheres and textures and themes and stories, and the whole story about how Todd Rundgren and the XTC put that album together, and how Todd Rundgren saw the songs as a cycle and kind of arranged them into this sort of narrative arc of like a metaphor for life, like being born, growing up, getting romantic with somebody, having babies, dying. That album is a full-on trip that back when it came out, I could not listen to it enough. I listened to it over and over and over and over. But it's another one that's like, there's no sharp edges. It's just taking care of you, and it's very attentive to the listener's needs. If you need harmony, there it is. And harmony, melody, story, production, it's an excellent record. So that's it. That's probably the only record other than Sgt. Pepper's that I feel like there's just no dead air, no dead space.
And as you can see, the perfect album runs the map from person to person. There are no right or wrong answers to this question, but my God, what an incredible list of albums. We had AC/DC's Powerage from Don Jameson, Alice in Chains' Dirt from CJ Pierce of Drowning Pool, the Avenue Q soundtrack from Patreon mixtaper Philip Bergman, Beastie Boys' License to Ill, and Foo Fighters' Greatest Hits from Jim and Lindsay Butler of Children of the 80s, the Beatles' Abbey Road from Tim Foreman of Switchfoot, Boston's self-titled album from Zack Derby of the Neatcast, Jimi Hendrix's Band of Gypsies, and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon from Chris Voss of The Record Company, Judas Priest's Screaming for Vengeance, and Metallica's first 3 albums from Jim Loughlin of Mo, Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti from Doug Aldrich of the Dead Daisies, Led Zeppelin's Zeppelin 1 from Paul Jackson of Blackberry Smoke, 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine from Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamasa, 9 Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral from Barry Kerch of Shinedown, Pearl Jam's 10 from Jay Sweet, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, second time for that, from friend of the show Bob Spear, Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime from Sean Faust, Queensryche's Operation Live Crime from Jason Whistle, host of It's Not That Bad and There Can Only Be One, Reliant K's from John Laurie of Tantric and Smile Empty Soul, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss's Raising Sand from Carrie Cunningham, Third Eye Blind and Thornley from Cody Hansen of Hinder, Tom Petty's Wildflowers, and the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, from Sylvan and Jesse over at Perfectly Good Podcast, and XTC's Skylarking from Chris Ballou of the Presidents of the United States of America. You can find all of these albums on all the streaming sites, as well as in all of your favorite independent music stores. I would prefer you do the latter, but listen to these albums and get this music into your ear holes. You'll be thankful you did. My name is Brian Colburn. There is one episode left of my weekly mixtape, and that is coming up next week. I appreciate the love and support that you have shown this show for the last 150 episodes, and next week is going to be a huge celebration of all things music as we talk about the songs that made you and me fall in love with music. I'm really excited to go down that road with you, and also it's a little bittersweet because I'm going to miss having these conversations with you all each and every week, but never say never. I didn't say we're hitting the stop button. We're only pressing pause for now. But with that, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, why not send me an email at myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This has been such an incredible ride, and I am so excited to celebrate 150 amazing episodes with you all next week as we press pause on My Weekly Mixtape. But I thank you for listening to The Perfect Album with me today, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.